And the answer is no. It's not a bit more complete power than electricity without a ground wire. The other day at the ranch we had a power failure. I was trying to find out what the trouble was. And sure enough, a feed truck had run into a telephone pole and the wires were down. As I was examining the wires, I found 2 hot wires that were not broken. And I thought, there's nothing wrong with this connection. The wires are not severed. I went back to find out if we had electricity, and we didn't. I came back to check again, and there was a cable along with the 2 wires that I had originally thought was just a wire to hold them up. And when I found out the cable was broken, and it was a ground wire, all I had to do was connect the broken cable back together, and we had electricity. Now, to show you the power that was in this actual cable, I could touch it with my bare hands. So would you say much electricity was flowing through the cable? No. But yet, how important was the cable? Well, it was important enough that we couldn't have electricity until I actually joined it together again. Now, I know this is going to be a slight mystery to you because we say that all real love is delegated. Then why do you need the love coming up from the bottom? And this is exactly what earned authority is. This is the love that comes from the bottom up. Now, would you compare this love that's coming from the bottom up to this cable that was carrying the ground? It's really not too important. I could touch it with my bare hands. But yet, do you have lights without it? I think if you can grasp this concept, then you'll realize that earned authority, my P2 concept of power, is actually the female role saying, yes, I know who you are, I know you have positional authority, and I'm submitting to you. Now, the submission, the actual act of submitting from the female role connects. And then we have what we call a working relationship. The real secret is tonight, how do you connect your ground wire? What we're going to do tonight, though, is share with you the actual makeup of this concept so that you can begin immediately to put this into your life. Earned authority basically is love. And love is broken down into 2 concepts. Number 1, no fear, and number 2, wisdom. We'll take no fear first. Now, let's further break no fear into 4 more concepts. The first one, submission. I know when I first mentioned submission, you wonder, well, what in the world does a male role have to do with submission? I thought the female role submitted to him. Wait a minute. The female role doesn't submit to the male until the male has already submitted to his head. And how is submission related to fear? The reason the male role does not submit is because he's afraid. He's afraid that he'll be walked on. He's afraid that he won't be taken care of. Therefore, we say in his fear, he doesn't submit. If you truly submit to your male role, to your own head, can you see the security that this gives to the female underneath you? I'll give you an illustration. Here's a foreman. He hates his boss. Everybody in the plant knows it. He walks out and gives an order. Now, the men do not know for sure if he's not giving an order just to spite his boss. Therefore, we say that they have a tendency to not submit to him. Let's contrast this with a foreman that's in perfect submission to his head. When he walks out and gives an order, the men feel like that that's the president talking, that he's carrying out the slightest whims of what the president wants. So we say then, if you're going to expect a female role to allow the love to return up the chain of command, that female role has to know that you are in total, complete submission to your head. After you are living in perfect submission to your head, and your female role is aware of this and knows this, we're ready for the next concept, firmness. She has to know that you are firm. I'll show you exactly what I mean. You know that a certain course of action is what's best for her. But you also have a feeling that at the present moment she wouldn't like it. You don't hesitate for one moment. You go ahead and you do exactly what's best for her, whether she likes it or not, without one fear. Now, the very fact that you're able to carry this out is the very reason that she will love you. This fools a lot of people. They let a single actual frown or a slight disappointment on the face of the female under them sway them to the point that they go against their principles, do something that's not really the best for her at the moment, because they feel how she feels at the moment. And then after it's over, she knows that the best was not done. But she knows even more than that. She knows that she wasn't really loved. His actions were to protect himself from her feelings at the moment and not love for her. We've had expressions, and I'm sure you've heard these, don't be too nice to people or they won't like you. Now, this expression, a lot of people believe is a wives' tale, but let me show you how it originated. People knew that when they were soft, that they actually obtained no respect. And they had a feeling that when they got tough, people liked them. This is quite a misconception, because when you're tough, people hate you. But they do crave discipline so desperately that they would like to infer that toughness is firmness. Let me give you a great statement. The greatest security and love that you can give to a child is discipline. And the reason for this is that discipline gives structure to that child's environment. And this causes the child to feel so secure that he loves you for giving him this security and this sanity. And I know of many different stories that I could tell you tonight of the difference between firmness and toughness, which is actual demand authority. Let me share one with you. On the ranch, we have a horse that we think is very valuable. When you have a horse worth this many thousands of dollars, you tend to baby it. Now, this horse was trained by one of the best trainers, I believe, in the world. And the horse performed beautifully. But you know, since the horse is so valuable, and that when we go to put the halter on, or the bridle, and the horse raises his head up, it's all right. Or if you start to put the saddle on, the horse moves forward 6 inches, that's all right. Or when you go out in the pasture to catch the horse, instead of walking up to you, he stands still and you walk to him, that's all right. And then if he moves 6 feet away, you walk a little further to get him, it's still okay because the horse is so valuable. Now, I'm describing a process of where you don't really love the horse. Now watch the way this fools you. You would think that I love the horse more because I'm walking the extra 6 feet instead of making the horse come to me. Am I going out of my way for the horse? Yes, I am. But I'm also describing the image of a soft person in the male role. Now, as we keep following this procedure, does the horse have any security? None. In fact, we're doing a very damaging thing to the horse. Because since we are not taking over the horse, and the horse is playing the female role, the horse is actually suffering from an unstructured environment. Now, this particular horse got worse and worse until finally, By the way, when we first actually received this horse back from the training, you could actually get on the horse and it wouldn't move. And finally it got to the place where in order to get on the horse, you almost had to make 3 complete circles to get on. Now, what was the actual result? The horse became so wild, the horse became afraid of himself until there was no control. Now, really, what you'd do if this was a normal horse would be to send it to the meat factory. But because we had so much money in this horse, we had to bring the trainer in. I want to tell you what happened in 4 hours. That horse got whipped and whipped and whipped. That horse was worked, was in a white lather for 4 hours. When the trainer got through, he said, I worked harder these 4 hours than I did the whole 3 months in training this horse. Now, of course, the horse was rewarded during this 4 hours when it would do something right. But the minute it did something wrong, it had to do it over and over and over, perfect, a dozen times. Now, if you were watching this trainer work on this horse, you would say it was demand authority. It was physical, and it was rough. But I would like to tell you tonight, you cannot tell what is demand authority and what is earned authority by looking as an outsider. Only the female role knows when it's earned authority or demand authority. He was in the lower pasture by the lake, and he decided that he had accomplished his mission, and the horse was now submissive to the nth degree. To prove his point and to show that the horse loved him for this, he turned his back on the horse. He called the horse by name and told the horse to follow him. And he started walking toward the barn. The horse ran after him. He began to nuzzle his arm, trying to love him. And then I guess he had to show off to us. Anywhere he wanted to walk on the whole ranch, that horse would follow him. We say that the horse had fallen in love with him. Why did the horse love him so much? Because he had whipped him? No. Because he had given the actual structure to this horse and made this horse's life worthwhile again. Let me give you another illustration. I was in an amusement park, and I saw a man take off a belt about 2 inches wide and whip a little boy. At this particular time, I was beginning to wonder if maybe somebody shouldn't report this. It was too brutal. And about the time I was thinking that maybe the man should be reported, he was through whipping his boy, and the little boy was crying. The tears were in his eyes so thick that he couldn't even see where he was. And he reached out with both arms in an attempt to find out which direction his father was in because he wanted to love him. And finally he staggered into one leg and threw both arms around it. And I could see that the little boy desperately loved his father. Now, what appeared on the surface to be demand authority was love. Now, I'd like to tell you something very contrasting to this incident. A little later in the afternoon in the same amusement park, I saw another boy. He looked like he had about torn his parents to shreds. He yelled at them. He would run here, he would run there. They would yell at him, they would threaten him. He would laugh at them. And finally the father says, "You know you have to obey me, you come here." And the little boy turned around and spit at him. The father says, "I'm disgusted with this." He says, "I don't know why I even bring him to the amusement park." And the father walks off to go get in the car and wait in the car. And let the mother continue to pay for his rides as he enjoys himself. Now, the first thought came to my mind, this boy is being ruined more than the boy that had the whipping. He's living in an unstructured environment. Now, we don't send little boys to the meat factory, but they grow up and do worse things than any wild horse could ever do. The next time when you see someone in the male role exercising some type of discipline on a female role, always remember, you on the outside will never know whether it's love or demand authority. But there's one thing that's unmistakable. The female role always knows when it's love. And if you're in the male role and it's love, how firm can you be? Well, let me tell you the answer tonight. If you play the male role properly, with love, you can be as firm as you have to be to cause the female role to measure up exactly to what you want from that female role. And this in turn gives the female role the structure that they need to feel like they belong and that they are loved. Let's go to the next concept, courage. Can you respect a boss that's afraid? Let me give you an illustration. Here's a man that can't sleep, rolling, tossing. He mumbles something in his sleep about the bills. Finally, she gets a little rattled. She thinks this is a pretty serious situation. I think he's coming unglued. The next day, she buys a newspaper. She looks for part-time work. In other words, her true warrior is buffaloed. Her hero is no longer a hero. We say then that when you are afraid, the female role cannot give you the earned authority that is necessary. So therefore we say true courage is needed to play a good male role and to obtain the earned authority that will be needed. And then I'd like to finish this group of 4 concepts under no fear with the final one called reverence, respect, awe. It's a beautiful concept. And I know when I mention even the fact I go as far as reverence or awe, the first thought that comes right to your mind immediately, isn't this what we do to God? And I know a lot of people wonder, well, how can I really get the respect of my men? And a husband wonders, how can I really get the respect from my wife? Well, let me tell you tonight 2 ways. Number 1, if you truly respect your head, and if you truly have reverence for your head, it's only natural for the female role under you to respect you. And the second way, is it hard tonight to give reverence and awe to God? No, that's easy. All right, now, what if you, in your position, with your positional authority, were the same as God to the person underneath you? Therefore, we say it's easy to give awe to the position. Now, if you're in a direct chain of command from God, this will be possible. I think it's beautiful when you have firmness, courage, awe, respect, submission, all working together, and you become a male role without fear. But that's not enough. We have to have wisdom. Wisdom is a concept that very few people understand. I'd like tonight, hurriedly, as we bring this evening to a close, to break wisdom down into 3 concepts. And to tell you tonight that if you're going to have the earned authority which you so desperately need, you will have to have wisdom. The first concept of wisdom is principles. You've got to know what you're going to do, and the female roles under you have to know what you're going to do before you do it. Now, I know if they're around you long enough, they will learn your principles. Now, when they learn the principles that you are using, we say that they, in turn, know what you're going to do. Now, when they can do this, they can predict your behavior. Now, can you see the security that this gives to the female role when she knows that because these principles apply to this situation, you will do this? Now, we have to have another concept besides principles and prediction. We have to have consistency. Prediction would not be possible without consistency. Let me give you an illustration. The other day, my oldest boy had some company. And you know what happens when more than one boy gets together? They influence each other. Now, at the edge of the ranch, inside the forest, there's a deep well. It's about 60 feet deep, and it's 4 feet in diameter. And we had just discovered it, and we were going to put a cover on it, but we hadn't actually had time to do it yet. But the boys had been told that they could not go into the forest area around this well. So what do you suppose the first place they go when the company comes? To the well. Now, my boy was influenced to go to the well, but as soon as he was at the well, he became very much aware of where he was. So he immediately broke all the influence and came straight from the well to where I was. By the way, the little boy that had influenced him was tagging along behind, trying to talk him out of it. But at this point in the game, nothing could sway him. He walked right up to me and he told me, he says, I disobeyed. I went to the well before I thought. And as soon as I knew where I was, I came straight here to tell you. Do you know the little boy that had influenced him, even after this statement had been made, said, we didn't go to the well. We didn't leave the ranch. My little boy turned around, looked at him and says, you know we did. He says, I always tell my daddy the truth. Can you imagine how I felt? Was this honorable? In other words, I could see that he was violating all the influence. And he was telling me the actual truth. And my first impulse was, what a reward he should have. I turned around and I looked at him and I said, what do you think I'm going to do? He said, there's no question about it. I said, well, what? And by the way, this is interesting. He's more sure of my principles than I am. He says, you're going to spank me. He says, are you really sure? He says, well, there's no other way that can be done. I mean, this is what I've done, and this calls for a spanking, and I'm ready. Do you know, all the way across the whole field that he had come to tell me the story, he knew what was going to happen to him before he ever came. Now, what could I do? I want to show you where wisdom comes into earned authority. Now, then we say what we need here is an act of wisdom. Now, do we have the principle? Yes. Does the female role know the principle? Yes. Does the female role predict? Yes. And the female role's prediction is based on the fact that I'll be consistent. Do I have an alternative? The answer is no. I gave him a whipping, and I made it a good one. I mean, I wanted him to know that we were consistent, so he would have his security. Now, after he was whipped thoroughly, I told him that I was very pleased with his persistence in telling the truth. And I thought under these conditions it deserved a reward, and that he could have anything on earth he wanted. He smiled, and he thought for a minute, and he said, I think what I'd like to have is a walkie-talkie. And I thought, well, you shall have it. I'll tell you an interesting thing that happened. Within 1 week, I was finishing up an implant seminar with a local firm. It was the last night of the seminar. And as I closed the seminar, the sales manager from this particular firm stood up to bring a present to the front of the room. And there was a standing ovation. And then he handed me this particular present, and I'd like to tell you what it was. It was a set of walkie-talkies. That night, I brought him home to my boy. He had been rewarded within 1 week of the very thing he wanted. Now, did this for one moment take away from the discipline? No. Now, let me contrast this with another little boy. He doesn't know whether he should do something wrong or not, right or not, because he doesn't quite know what will be the verdict. Now, the actual types of behavior that his parents give him when he does something wrong is all the way from a smile of approval to losing his head. Now, he hasn't a computer, nor does he have the facts to know which they're going to do. For example, if he knew whether they had fought themselves or not, it would help. Or if he knew whether they had eaten properly, it would help. Or if they had slept the night before. In other words, can he predict their emotional environment? No, he cannot. Therefore, when he does something wrong, is it almost worth the gamble? Because he will not know whether he'll be whipped or whether they'll smile at him. And by the way, if they're feeling good, they'll smile at him when he does something wrong. But if they happen to be upset and he does something right, they'll still whip him. Now, what does this do to the sanity of that child? We say it confuses him to no end. Now, can he give earned authority to those parents? We could go on for hours describing what wisdom is and how you need wisdom and the actual ability to have no fear in your body to have earned authority. But let's summarize quickly. If I actually have the concept of earned authority, I have the three top A's. They are admiration, adoration, and infinite affection. And these three give me love, and they give me earned authority. Now, all leadership is based on you obtaining the top three A's from the female roles under you. Many times in the seminar, when we want to really understand something, we go to God for an example. Let's go to God tonight for our example of earned authority. And let's find out what God's wisdom is. First of all, does he have a set of principles? The answer is yes. Is he consistent? The answer is yes. Can you predict? And the answer is yes. In other words, we say there is no shadow of turning. Therefore, do you have sanity tonight? Now, if tomorrow morning the sun didn't come up, do you know what would happen to a lot of people's sanity? I'm thinking of a particular situation with an unstructured environment in a space experiment. A normal person, emotionally stable, within a few hours was disturbed. Therefore, we say that the female roles underneath us deserve the security of the male role demonstrating earned authority. And what we have done tonight is go through earned authority as a spectrum. We have divided it up so we could see what it's made out of so that the male role will be able to actually control the female roles and have a productive life.